Hello and welcome back to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla and I'm so glad you're here with me. And once again, I have Arrie Simpson who continues to be brave and is willing to continue to interview me. So our goal is to talk about mental health issues and and the stigma around them. So today we're going to though talk a little bit about our philosophy of how we operate here at the Cognitive Clinic. So
Right. So the question for you, Dr. Carter, you have change, discover, transform. So let's start with where did it come from, and then let's break down each individual one and kind of go more in depth on each one.
sure. So it came from the idea that I knew that if I could change how I'm thinking about things, that then my life could change, right? And so the more we talked about this, and when I say we, I mean Eva, another really good friend of ours, in Eva's kitchen with, big sticky notes all around the kitchen cabinets, right? Trying to figure out like what the heck we're talking about.
Hmm.
But as we put more and more stuff up there, and the more we talked about um, the idea of changing your thoughts, right? So, Freud says that our thoughts can make us sick. So my thought is, well, if they can make us sick, they can also make us well,
Right.
right? So kind of bouncing off of that one piece, we started to bounce off different things. And eventually, through a lot of brilliant minds, I don't think it was mine. I think it was probably Donna's or Eva's, but we came up with, change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life.
Okay. Okay. A lot of stuff happened in Eva's kitchen,
There
huh?
was a lot of stuff happening in that kitchen. That kitchen had a lot of big post-it notes all over the place. We didn't have any place else to do it, so her kitchen was it.
Okay, so let's kind of start with change. Let's break down what change is. You started a little bit about, you started with like if I can change myself, then I can help others change. So let's start with change and then go on to discover and transform.
Sure. So change. Well, you have to be willing to change, wanting to change, be interested in changing, at least inquisitive about changing.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, none of this stuff is going to happen, right? So until somebody's ready to take a look at what else might be out there, um, we're at a standstill. And so I knew that from my own personal life. I knew that from my professional life. Like I said, my previous life was in the world of special education. So there's not a huge difference between a lot of the needs in both arenas. But, if somebody didn't want to do something different, didn't want to make a change in their life, didn't want to see something better for themselves, it was all for naught, right? And so it has to start with changing your thoughts. Because our thoughts are what most people talk about. I have all these negative thoughts. These thoughts are really bothering me. I have these thoughts that I can't do this or whatever. So if we can't get those things to change or at least be challenged in some way, then we're going to be stuck.
Okay. Okay. What about discover?
Well, if you're willing to open that door, like if you're willing to open the door to change, then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, this is possible. This is possible. I can try this. I can try this and I don't like it, so I'm not going to do that one again. Or I can try this and I really like it, so I'm going to do that more, right? So it's this idea of discovering what else is out there, right? So if we're not willing to change, we can't even open the door to see what's possible. Well, once we are willing to accept the fact that something's got to shift, right? Then the opportunities are endless. We can discover all sorts of things about ourselves, right? And hopefully, as we discover these different things, what's going to happen is that we're going to be able to build on them and really be able to see where our true potential lies, right?
Okay. So if it was a person who not necessarily was afraid of change, but necessarily like the discovery part, it's more so where they kind of get more hung up. Far as if they were to see all these new avenues that they can discover, but then that brings the fear. What is something that you utilize how, or what is something that you utilize to help people to take that next step?
Oh, yeah. I mean, having no choices and too many choices, even though they seem like at opposite ends of the spectrum, they probably elicit the same like body sensations, like, oh my God, now what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to
Right.
look, right?
Right.
Um, and I would tell that person, is there one thing that makes you go, hmm, that's kind of weird, or that's interesting, or I really like that, or, you know, anything. And then let's just explore it. What if you just put your toe in that pool, right? What if you just looked at that? So discovering all of those um, possibilities. It might be going back to school. It might be changing your job. It might be choosing to set a boundary. It might be all sorts of different things. But what happens if you try this one little piece? I've always wanted to go back to school. Okay, so let's look. What would you go back to school for? I don't know. What would I go back to school? Well, let's just play and pretend like there's no limits. What would you really be drawn to? And we can just dream and just and look at things in session, and hopefully you would continue that dreaming and that kind of exploration outside of session to the point where then you're like, this might still be possible. I might actually be able to do this, whatever this might be, a new career, go back to school, you know, uh, talk to that person that I've been dying to talk to, whatever the case may be. But there's no way you can do everything. It's impossible.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess you could try to do everything, but I find that if you try to do too many things at once, you can't give appropriate attention, and then you're just floundering around and just jumping around, and it's not making sense. But you know, dipping that toe in, testing it out. And then here's the best part. You dip your toe in and you don't like it, you take your toe out.
Right.
It's not like this.
Don't keep it in
Yeah,
there.
well, you don't have to keep it in. There's no rule that says, oh, you dipped it, now you got to stay, right? Like you can choose to be like, yeah, I looked into that, and that is not for me.
Right.
Okay, we know we are not going to go down that road. Boom, one other thing to get rid of, right?
Right.
So, that second piece is really about dreaming and allowing yourself to just kind of wonder and be
Okay.
curious.
Okay. Okay. What about transform?
Well, if you're willing to dip your toe in and you actually like what you're doing there, right? Then it is going to change your life. It's going to transform it. It's gonna help you create the best you possible, and being confident then to go out and try that. So if we realize that, wow, this job I'm in right now is not very fulfilling. I love my job. Don't get me wrong. Okay, it's not me. And maybe you want to go back and you want to do something different. Okay, and you explore and you check it out and finally decide, yep, this is what I want to do. Well, that's going to take you down a path that is completely different than anything else that you have been doing. So your life can't help but be transformed. There's no way your life can remain the same if you're making all these other changes, all these other discoveries, all these other, um, you know, nuances about who you are and what you are and how your being loves best to be, you know, in this world.
Right. It's a big part of like if you want something different, you got to do different.
Right, right. And it should show up and people should notice. Like it'd be great if you noticed. Like it'd be great if someone says, wow, I really noticed that you've made those changes, right?
Right.
Without having to be told, by the way, I'm working on making a bunch of changes, right? Because then it's at the core of your being, it's in your soul that you're making these changes, right? It's not just checking off a checklist about the changes.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So change, discover, transform.
Yes. Very powerful.
Cool. And we would love for you guys to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And questions or comments you have, we would greatly appreciate that as well. Remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well being. So until next time, continue working on the best you possible.